All right, thank you all for being here. Significant day for our program as we continue our upward climb. We close strong down the stretch. I think it's important to note too, this is our staff really started kind of behind on this class, really going to work on it toward the end of January into February. But I thought we had a strong finish. And it's extremely hectic. 2.5, 3 weeks really since the conclusion of the TCU game. A ton of travel along the East Coast. Pleased with the results. Very appreciative to these guys, especially these guys that have been committed to us for a long time, for trusting in us and buying in early on. We signed the top 2 rated prospects here in the state of West Virginia, which was a goal. Our class represents 10 states, 2 foreign countries. Heavy focus on O-line and DBs in this class. And I'd say this class isn't done. Still have the chance to have maybe an addition later today. We will have some additions in February. And as you all know, we'll continue to find creative ways to add to our roster leading right up into fall camp. Recruiting is a team effort, and kind of want to talk about that and talk to you all about it and kind of give some of our fans kind of an inside look at what it looks like. But it's a team effort, and today's results are really a product of everyone in our entire organization, and a lot of people on campus as well. Starts with our recruiting department. It's led by Brian Bennett, Casey Smith, and Scott Gasper, and they've got a group of interns that really looks at the prospects and combs through data. And then Katie Gusto and Michelle Stanley do an excellent job of hosting families and recruits when they get on campus, and really a large group of interns that assist in that process well, and really do a tremendous job behind the scenes. Those aren't names you hear a lot, but they play a critical role during this recruiting process. I think our on-field coaching staff, especially during the rigors of a season, keeping up communication lines, and I thought they did a really good job of that. Our administrative staff, talking about Coleman Barnes assisting with our branding at all times, and Patrick Johnston in operations, and then Will Johnson in player relations plays a huge role in the recruiting when guys get here on campus. Our GAs, our support areas, that probably goes unnoticed sometimes, but recruiting takes up a lot of weekends and a lot of extra time. All our support areas, where it's athletic training with Vince Blankenship and his staff, academics, Brittany Odell and her staff. Both of those areas are key when you're dealing with parents and families, and as a parent, I get that, and they do a great job. Strength conditioning is a huge piece when you're talking about guys making decisions, because so much is about developing how they can get prepared to go to the next level. And Mike Joseph and their staff, and what he's incorporated from a sports science standpoint gives us an edge over some of our opponents. Nutrition is an area that we continue to grow, and I think that's another edge that we have on people that we're competing against. And then student enhancement, Tangela Cheatham, really doing a good job of growing what is going to be our 5th quarter program. And this probably, people don't know this, but people on campus, our professors, I want to say we had deans meet with 4 of our prospects that we signed in one-on-one academic meetings, and then that just shows buy-in across campus. Dr. Gee is played an active role in recruiting. Hope he is recovering well from hip surgery. I'm sure he is. And then our current players, we do a player panel when we go through our junior day process, where our staff leaves and families and recruits can ask our current players anything they would like to ask. We do, when they come on official visits, they always have player host, and our players are a big part of this process, and I think that's probably something that doesn't get talked about enough. And finishing up and kind of thanking people, is I want to thank for today. I thought we had tremendous coverage across all social media and our internet show, and so I want to thank our athletics communication staff led by Mike Montero and Mike Fergale. I want to thank our digital media, Grant. And I was laughing because Monty was getting ready to get Grant Dovey, and I almost slipped up because Monty was talking about giving some trash on Grant. But digital media has played a huge role in all seriousness. If you look across what Grant and his staff did today, it's really impressive. And then finally, our football creative department, led by Austin Gaines, has done a nice job, and that's something that's growing in recruiting, and whether it's graphics, behind the scenes videos, and all that kind of stuff. I think that's an area that's continued to grow for us. So with all that being said, we got a lot of positive momentum heading into the holidays, heading into the off season. Just so you know, finals finished this week, graduation this weekend, and then our off season, our guys are back here on January 12th. Off season starts soon after, and we're off and rolling. The 21 class is we're already deep into that process. This will be the 21 class will be our first opportunity to have really the 2-year run. We've already had 2 junior days in December. We'll have 3 at the minimum in January, and we've had several of our top prospects already on campus multiple times. So exciting days ahead. And with that, I'll open up for questions.
So Neal, 11 and a half months ago when you took the job, your anticipation of what you needed, how did that change over the next 11 and a half months, and how did you fill it all?
Yeah, well, I don't know if that we have to fill it all, you know, in openness. I think it's going to be an ongoing process. You know, you're going to have natural needs every single year, you know, whether it's quarterback or certain line positions and things like that. What we did is intentionally, we didn't fill up as early as some people. I wanted to be able to see what we had when we got into Big 12 play, and see what exactly our immediate needs were that were going to give us an opportunity next year, but also our needs and to making sure we were having a quality roster 2, 3, 4 years down the road. So I think obviously early on we identified, you know, we needed to add offensive linemen. We needed to add defensive backs. You know, defensive backs not just for secondary play, but also for special teams play. We were extremely thin. I think we traveled 5 corners to our last couple games, which is really thin. 3 of those guys were seniors. So, but I thought we did a really nice job addressing some of our needs. Some of them we got to continue to do that. I mean, running back will definitely sign one in February. That's a need that we didn't fill in today that we hope to in February.
Noticed New Jersey, South Florida, capital area. Is that something you try to make a priority to those areas?
Well, I think so. What we set out here is we took a 6-hour radius around Morgantown, and that needs to be our primary recruiting area. And I thought we did an okay job. I think we've got to continue to build relationships and grow our brand and grow our presence in that. And then we look at these secondary areas where we've had established relationships, whether it's in Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, whatever it is. But the New Jersey area, I think I told this story about Coach Neal, and he was talking about his '88 team, and he was talking about how many kids were from New Jersey. That's an area that when I was a young coach that recruited heavy. I've got an appreciation for the players in that state. I think we have a large student body representation from New Jersey, so I think it's a good fit in that regard as well. So that's an area that we want to be heavier in. You know, signed Charles Finley out of there today. That's a big positive. But we want to continue to grow there. You know, the DMV is something that's one of the top or most fertile recruiting grounds in the entire country, and you know we've got to have a stronger presence in there. I thought for going in there with in a short amount of time, I thought we did a pretty good job. You know, I'm really excited about the guys we brought out of there. But I think we'll continue to grow. We got to get better in some areas. You know, state of Ohio, Western PA, we got to get better. But we're making some inroads. Sometimes those inroads and those relationships take time.
Did you ever think you'd need a passport to do recruiting?
That's interesting. You know, I was good. I was a little worried that mine wasn't up to date. But yeah, we had a little bit of a hectic day last Thursday, so we started the day in Florida, in Clearwater. I was telling another group, I think it was 77. We got on the plane in Clearwater, and we got off. It was in Celsius, and it was pretty cold when we got off in Ottawa. But you know, some fun stories. You know, I wanted to do this too, and I was going to do it at the end. I'll kind of do it now. I'm just going to kind of give you a little back on all these guys, kind of going down this list. Sam Brown, big pickup today. A lot of credit to Xavier Dye and Travis Trickett for seeing that. Guy that really excited about. I think his best football is ahead of him. He's a fast guy. Plays for a relatively new program down in Savannah, and he's got big ball. He's got big hands. He's got great ball skills. I just think he's got an opportunity to be a phenomenal college player, and we beat some really good people down the stretch to get him. And Savannah has been a really good area for us. You know, I think we're gonna have 4 players from that area over the last couple of recruiting classes. Linnell Carr, I'm just gonna go kind of alphabetically and kind of talk you through a little bit. Linnell Carr from St. Louis came. We saw him live in the spring. Coach Leslie did. Really identified him early on. He came, and this is the case now. You know, whenever you stage official visits, you're rolling dice a little bit. Well, if you get them on campus early and they decide this is where they want to be, you gotta withstand a lot of visits that are going to come after you and things like that. And Linnell came early with his family, and he made the decision it's the best fit for him, and he never wavered. Didn't take another trip, and just a lot of trust. And he goes on and plays his best football as a senior, which isn't always the case. People think, oh, you naturally progress and you play your best ball. That's not always the case, but he did. Led his team to a state championship. If you go and I've been practicing saying this, so I'm gonna make sure I get this right. Jaito, did I get that cone? Jaito. Jaito. There you go. I guess say it fast. Jaito. All right, but you know, I think this is a great story. You're seeing it play out over, you know, not just here, but in several cases in college football. It's an international game, which I think is incredible for the game in general. But he came over and came to a camp and was really, I think some of you probably saw him, maybe even seen him in that camp, and he was physically impressive. You know, he ran well, he covered. We had a couple of elite receivers in that camp, and he was in lockdown mode, and just really kind of excited where this game is going to take him. And he's going to be here in January. Charles Finley, another kid that won a state championship, DePaul Catholic. He's a developmental guy, kind of from his high school tape is very similar to Michael O'Loughlin, and I think O'Loughlin's got a really bright future here. Started like 10 games as a redshirt freshman, and Charles is a guy that's going to continue to gain weight. And he's got ball skills. He can run routes. I think he'll develop into a real quality blocker. Zach Frazier is really, when I first got this job in January, the 2 prospects that we really set our sights on in this class early on were Zach Frazier and Sean Martin. I think it's very, very important for us in a state that has a low population, maybe not as many Power 5 type prospects as some other places, that we got to keep those guys within our state. And Zach is you know, wrestling. I think he's only been beaten one time, maybe as a high school wrestler. I think he's going to be perhaps a dominant player at center for us. He's got great football instincts. He's intelligent. Loves West Virginia. Garrett Green, a quarterback signee. I think I put this out on Twitter. He's a competitor. You know, and sometimes, you know, he runs a little hot, but it's all from a good place. And he's a kid that we have a relationship going back 2 years. I've seen him multiple times live in camp situations over that 2-year period. And he's a dual threat, where he can change arm angles. He made a lot of plays. And I think it says a lot when he stayed at his local high school. There's so many opportunities where he transferred and moved away, and he really stayed right there. And his team was decimated with injuries over a couple-year period. He never said a word, just went to work and was really productive. Sean Martin, same that I talked about with Frazier. Sean had an incredible run. I think he's continued to play basketball. They got a chance to win state in basketball, winning program down in Bluefield, and we were just persistent. Chad Scott and Jordan Leslie were just really, really persistent. We had a setback early on with him when he made an earlier commitment. We just stayed persistent and stayed consistent with him, and that was probably as important of a win as any we had. Not only for Sean, but also just for the future in state. Jackie Matthews, and we'll stay on this same kind of theme, is from a winner. Takes Pinson Valley to a state championship as a senior in high school, wins a national championship at Gulf Coast Community College. He's a winner. He's versatile. He can play any of the positions in the secondary. We'll probably start him in the safety role unless something changes, but has really good football instincts. Chris Mayo is integral to our future offensive line. Plays at the Petty School, very successful program. He's going to be college ready when he gets here. I mean, that's a really challenging academic school as well. And he jumped in this summer, and again, after he committed to us, he shut it down. Great family. Quay Mays is a kid that we've been recruiting since he was in high school. Really unique story. Played 1 year in high school football. Went to Northwest Mississippi College in Mississippi. They got beat in their league championship. Played for a guy that I used to work with at Troy, Coach Benji Parker. Keem Messador is Jamal Adai and Jordan Leslie, man, really went to work on this one. I think this is a great example of why relationships matter so much. We really dug in on him early. He moved to Clearwater, had a great senior year, and that was a trip. We went from Clearwater to Ottawa. It was a full day, but it was absolutely worth it. And Darryl Porter Jr., dad played in the NFL, comes from one of the top programs in all of Florida, American Heritage. He's a guy that's got football smarts off the charts. He can come in and he can play multiple positions. He's going to start at corner. Torres Simmons, another Savannah guy, took his team to state semifinals. His best football is in front of him. When he committed, he's about 205. He's 215 to 220. I think he'll continue to grow in that role. Reese Smith from my hometown. He's really the first player that I've actively recruited from home, and because that's always going to be home for me. So I've always been choosy about who we go back and try to get. So that tells you how much I think of him, because he's highly productive. He's about the right things. He's tough, physical. Tariq Stewart is an offensive lineman from Warrensville, Ohio, by way of Brooklyn. ASA Junior College. He's lost almost 80 pounds over the last 12 to 15 months. I think that shows his commitment. He's long, he's big, he'll be a tackle for us. I think that he's a guy that has a chance to be a factor for us next fall. David Vincent Okoli is had a very, very strong performance in camp. Maybe had as good a camp performance as anybody we had over the summer. Extremely fast, versatile, played offense and defense. We had to hold off some late charges, but we were able to do that. A really good job by Jamal Adai in that. DeVell Washington is a receiver that's been committed to us since back in the spring. Never blinked. One of the first guys to jump in along with Reese and Garrett. And he's got big time potential. I think he's extremely raw. I think he's going to continue to mature, but he's powerful. And the last one is Jordan White. Jordan White set out his whole junior year, but played at DeMatha, one of the top programs in the country. And if you watch his film, his senior film is as good as you're going to find from an offensive lineman. He finishes blocks. He plays nasty, and I mean that in a positive way. And so, just a quick note on all those guys. I meant to do that before I took questions, so I apologize on that. So back to the questions.
How many do you think will enroll in January?
All right, let's see here. Let me count them real quick. I probably should have had that written down. Jato will be here in January for sure. Gary Green, Reese, Jackie Matthews, Quay Mays. Yeah. Who else is up? Brian. Yeah, Brian, jump in right there if you got.
Well, he's supposed to.
No, those are the guys. Those are the guys for sure.
You mentioned running back. Yeah, what else do you want to target?
Well, we're going to continue to add to our offensive line class. All right, whether that's February or summer. Yeah, but running back for sure. We'll definitely add at least one running back in this class.
How many of these guys were people you either discovered or first connected with while you were at Troy?
Garrett, Quay, Reese. Knew about Sam and Torres, but really didn't get on them until we were here. So I think those are the guys.
When you wake up this morning, how much of this do you know? How much of it is
Yeah,
still
well,
uncertain even to you?
Yeah, well, you think you know, but I've been around long enough now where until you get it used to be the old fax. Now we actually did get one fax, which was a pleasant surprise. But until you get the picture, you just don't know. You know, I tried to talk to every one of them last night. They get pulled so many different ways. You know, they're all professionals recruiting them, and the social media dynamic in recruiting has changed so much because you know, kids they're wary of the negative repercussions that can come, and so there's just a lot to manage. And while they got tremendous opportunity, I feel for them in some ways because this really should be a celebration. In a lot of ways, kind of a culmination of their high school career, and they've obviously done well academically, they've done well athletically, and this should be kind of a celebration day. Sometimes it's just kind of relief for them, and I feel for that a little bit. There were a couple unknowns, well, for sure, you know, and that's part of finishing. You know, I thought we finished pretty strong. There's still one out there. We'll see how it shakes out. But it's pretty consistent on how I thought it would fall so far today.
Carr and Simmons, they're not just ID as linebackers, they're ID as bandits. I mean, that's obviously a pretty important deal for Vic.
Yeah,
you
we're
recruit in that
thin.
position.
Yeah, we're thin at that spot. You know, I thought Jared Bartlett did some nice things closing out the year. Van Darius will be back. Probably will be non-contact during the spring, but he showed some signs in a couple games he played. But we needed depth. We need to add some more athleticism. Linnell is a natural pass rusher. He's a guy that has played standing up and played with his hand down. And then Torres is a guy that is really kind of growing into his role. He was almost a nickelback a year ago, and most of his pass rushing has been done from a blitzing perspective. But we feel like he's got a great frame and he'll continue to gain weight. But we were looking for guys that they can only pass rush but can drop to play in coverage, and we felt like both those guys have those skills.
How big, several times. Where does that play in your evaluation process?
Yeah, well, I think everybody tries to get winners. I think in kind of where we're at as a program, I think it's really important because we want to add. So when you come from a winning program, you understand what goes into being a winning program. And when I say program, because a lot of these guys come from like high-end programs, not just flash in the pan teams and just have a hot senior year because they have talent. These are programs that consistently win and compete for state championships. And so guys that come through that, all right, they understand what goes into it. So they have an expectation, or their expectation is they're going to work, and there's a process you go through, and they understand that to be successful on the field is you got to be great in the weight room, you got to be great on the practice field. And I think that's what doesn't get talked about enough is when you bring guys in from high-level programs, is there's not as much of a shock factor, and they understand, and they can say, hey, listen, this is what we did at X school. This is what we did. You know, hey, this is all this stuff because it matters. And so I think it plays a huge role in your locker room.
So when you look at two kids, that may tip the balance?
No, listen, we're always going to try to take the most talented kid.
Okay.
All right, but I think winning matters. And so if you got kids that you like, all right, and let's say it's close, and one of them, you know exactly how they've been challenged and how they've been pushed, and they know how to win and overcome adversity. I think then that can be, if you're trying to figure out what's the difference, then yeah, you want to go with that.
You know, is that maybe more so true of quarterback, where if a guy hasn't had 5-star players all around, but he's still been productive, he knows it isn't easy, and that's the one position like we saw this year that's affected more than anybody else by surrounding parts.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I think it's a good. So I'll just talk about Garrett in general. You know, it's so watched him really going back I've seen 3 years worth of high school football from him, and the thing that I really appreciate with him is they've had injuries there. And they've had really they struggled up front at times there, and he's been productive. He is never once complained. He's never once, over the course of our relationship, he's ever said anything negative about any of his teammates. And he's just went to work, and so I appreciate that. But I think that on a quarterback is if they show competitive character and they know how to, especially if they handle themselves well at the end of the games, those are huge factors.
Neal, how big is the step that Frazier takes from playing at Fairmont to playing here, and is it bigger because he's a center than maybe for the Stills brothers?
You know, I don't know. I think center is a position that takes some time. I'll say this: I watched him play live against Bridgeport, and Bridgeport went on and won state championship, and that group down there did a really good job. But when I watched him live and I saw the pad level he played with and how he used his hands, it led me to believe that he may be able to contribute early, right? And he's got a really good football mind. I think it'll help. You know, it's how well he'll transition, I think it's to be determined. But my hope is that he'll transition well and quickly.
On the offensive line, you guys didn't feel the true freshmen were quite there yet this year. With this group, do you sense maybe any of these guys could play right away?
Well, I think from a strength standpoint, we're going to have a couple guys that are ready. Okay? And if you go back and look at, let's say we had 2 guys last year that were freshmen that we redshirted. They're going to be huge factors for us in the spring. And I'm really excited about them. All right, Parker Moore and Brandon Yates. Well, Brandon Yates didn't get here to start a fall camp. All right, so if Brandon Yates had been able to go through the 8 or 9 week summer program, I think you would have saw him at some point during the season. He would at least played 4 games. Okay, we just didn't think from a conditioning or from a strength standpoint he was ready. Now he's going to be a huge factor moving forward. I think, and I'm really excited about him. Parker he was close. And I thought he grew, and really if we had any injury, he would have played. He wasn't ready early in the year. He probably was ready later in the year. As far as these guys Jordan White has played against high level competition at DeMatha. That's one of the premier leagues in all high school football. So it's going to be a jump. It's always a jump. And offensive line is the hardest position to play of any position. But I think his training at that level will give him a better opportunity, maybe the most. And I think Zach's strength gives him a chance as well.
In the old days, coaches used to talk about grouping recruiting classes together. You need to put 2 together. Is that still applicable today, the way the game has changed?
Yeah, and let me go back. Chris Mayo he's played against people too. He's been playing against some 5th-year kids over at the Petty School. I think you got to put multiple recruiting classes together now, and I think that another piece of it is you've got to be. I don't know if recruiting ever stops, not only for future classes but your current class. I really don't. I think it's you have to work year-round to add to your roster, where that used to not be the case. You usually have your February signing day, and that was it. you got better on that day, or you didn't get better. And now it's not the case. You're continually trying to add to your roster, and I think you got to continually add. All right, and what you want to do is you got 5 classes on your roster. You have a 5th-year senior, you got senior, you got junior, sophomore, freshman, redshirt freshman. Does that make sense? Like you got 5 that roll through there, and so you want them pretty evenly distributed. And to do that is you got to not only recruit well, but you got to do a good job of holding on those guys that are playing.
The international guys, you're projecting with all of these classes, but those guys, how much do you have and how much are you assuming?
So this is kind of our first round. With Akeem, he came and played against quality competition. He played his senior year down at Clearwater Academy, and they traveled really around the eastern United States and played. Coach Leslie and I watched him play against Cincinnati Elder, who's really a top end program. So the transition probably won't be as big for him as it is for Jaito. And now Jaito's he's a little older, a little bit more mature, but hasn't played against the same type of competition. And so I'm excited. He's coming in January, so he'll have eight months or so to get acclimated. But athletically, he can do it.
Well, Coley seems pretty interested, maybe capable of at least doing something on offense.
Mhm.
Type of potential is there?
Well, he played mostly receiver in high school and did a good job. I'm excited about what he can do in the return game. That's one area that we've got to get better. Probably doesn't get talked about as much as, outside of Sinkfield, we didn't have really a guy that we could put back there and catch punts. I think Reese Smith and a Coley are going to be options there. I think a Coley's going to be a guy that can go back and catch kickoffs. He did a good job of that in high school. He is really good with the ball in his hands. I think long-term, future-wise, his best football in front of him, his best opportunity to be an elite player is at the corner position. But there's no doubt he can play receiver here.
Marcus Jones, experiment in Troy.
I think that's pretty accurate. Now Marcus played 2 years and was he's freshman All-American and returned let me see off the top of my head maybe five kickoffs for touchdowns. Right. But same type of player, very similar builds.
Grad transfers with your final couple scholarships, will you keep that available, immediate eligibility type of guys? Is that a need?
Yeah, I think that, again, we're always going to kind of be open to it. It's so we'll sign, I don't want to put a number on it, but we'll sign some guys in February, and then we'll look whether there's a grad involved in that. We'll see. A lot of it depends what comes available. You never know. So we'll see how that goes, progresses over the next 6 weeks. Then I think it's fair to say that we'll be in the market over the summer just like we were a year ago.
Curious, you got a couple South Florida guys. Did you run into any West Virginia people down there to help you with that?
There's a lot of West Virginia. And you asked about South Florida earlier, and I kind of just talked about New Jersey. But yeah, there's a ton of South Florida, West Virginia connections. And going into Heritage and sign Darryl Porter Jr., I think that's a connection in that high school. Obviously, his name is very well known throughout that area, because of his dad. And I think that's an area that we can continue to be fruitful. Travis Trickett's recruited down in that area for a long time and done a really good job. Coached at FAU and then at different spots on his career. So I think you'll continue for us to go down there and try to get some kids.
Is there anything you felt you could have done better
In recruiting? Yeah, you're always going to miss on some guys, I always laugh. People get up here and, you think any college coach across the country is going to say they had a bad class today? You know what I mean? It's kind of funny to me, but I think you just we focus on the guys we got. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you we got everybody we tried to get. I mean, that's not the case, and y'all follow it. But I am pleased with how we finished. I think that I'm really pleased with this 20 class. I'm excited about what we can do as an organization, 21 and beyond, playing on an even field, even field with everybody else, where we got really 2 full years invested in these guys. So, Mike, you ready to shut this down? So I stood up there, Mike.
Yes, sir.
I want to close with this. So, I was thinking about this this morning, and so yesterday, the guy that coached me in high school, a guy named Chuck Smith, he retired. So he coached Reese as well. He was at 19 years at my high school at Boyle County. So 2 different stints. Had a stint there at Kentucky, but really just kind of been thinking about him. And the offensive coordinator there is a guy named Chris Pardue, and just 2 guys that outside of my father probably had as much influence over who I am and as much influence over how we coach our kids than anybody. And what I really was thinking about, and you go through this recruiting process, and high school coaches, I think, to the detriment of the process, are more and more not involved in the recruiting process. And I think it's really hard for a high school coach, maybe harder now than it ever has been. And I just want to say this about high school coaches in general, is high school football coaches absolutely make a difference. And I think about Chuck Smith, what he did in that Danville community, really helped change the school system, helped change the community. And there's a ton of those type of stories out there. And I think it's important to note on this day where we're celebrating mostly high school student athletes, that the high school football coaches make a difference. And if Chuck Smith and Chris Pardue, if they didn't push me to be uncomfortable, if they didn't challenge me, I'm speaking from my point of view, I wouldn't be here today. And I think it's I think it's the same case for a lot of the people in this room that played high school football. I think it's the case for a lot of guys in our locker room. So I just want to thank the high school coaches. Okay, y'all have happy holidays. Enjoy the break. I will see you all at some point in January, I'm sure. Okay, thank you all.